Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The matches for the regular season have officially been confirmed. Sentinels versus 100T, the very first game that both of those teams will play during the course of the regular season. But some big games to kick off the season as well. Lots to get into today, including potential roster drama as well at Paper Rex. What are they cooking up with their most recent changes? Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into as always. Dirk with an interesting take here as well, I thought, just to start out the video. But we're going to dive straight into some of the scrims over the last couple of days, because there have been some interesting things noted, results happening, but also potentially changes that teams may presently be looking to make. Evil Geniuses, we saw yesterday, were having seemingly a pretty good result against the Qubit Academy. I don't know who they were playing yesterday, and there aren't that many pixels, but we at least can read that does say 0 to 12. Now, they were having a pretty rough time against whoever they were playing, and I don't know if they got 30-0 or like how it went from there, but yeah, Sim says no one 30-knows Derek, and Derek says those guys had hands. So VCT Scrims tries to get him to tell him who they were playing against, but of course he's not so willing to do that. But EG, yeah, Pro League caliber team. We'll have a look at where they sit in the standings in a second, or where they might sit in the standings given who they play in the first few rounds of the Americas regular season. But who do you think that EG were playing to be down 0-12 to? Because it seemed like at least EG are making some decent progress, and that's a pretty sizable result, whatever that potentially looks like. There was also this, Loud were scrimming someone, we don't really know. They were down 3-12 in that, so again, another pretty difficult result potentially. There was also this noted. So the Sen Academy, or Qubit Academy, whatever you want to be calling them, Knight, Stapper, etc., they were scrimming the new NRG team. So NRG now with Brock in the lineup instead. Mike's HD has come on, of course, over there as the head coach, and it's FNS, Somada, Ethan, and now Brock rather than Verno as it was not all that long ago. That was interesting, and Sentinel also became 11-8 as well, so it was a pretty competitive map, I suppose. But, you know, it was obviously interesting when you see Qubit Academy doing very well against, or EG doing very well against Qubit, then Qubit doing very well against NRG, then EG getting slammed by someone, unnamed team, pretty interesting. Sentinels played a couple of scrims as well. They were up 9-6 on an unknown team. That swiftly became 13-8. So, yeah, we saw some interesting results yesterday. This, though, was probably the most interesting, and it was on Paper Rex. Now, Paper Rex was spotted scrimming without something in the team. So, Devi was here, Alex, of course, the coach, Forsaken, Jing, Mind Freak, but there was no something, it seems, in the scrim set. Now, what exactly this looks like, because as he says, it doesn't necessarily mean that they've dropped him exactly, but almost certainly it does mean that they are trialing Patmen in their team for various changes. So they signed Patmen the other day, and there were rumours that he would replace either Jing or potentially Mind Freak. Rumour has it that they've already done this, and in scrims over the last few days, Paper X have dropped Mind Freak and they've put in Patmen, they've dropped Jing, they've put in Patmen, and they're just running trials, basically. What was very interesting about that article from Tanmay, though, was that he said that Patman is not expected to be a starting player for another split. They're going to run this split with their normal team, and then they're going to put him in, which is strange, because if you think it's going to help your team, you do it now, right? And obviously they're trialing him right now. So, yeah, very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below, because I don't know what they'll do or what's a good idea. Patman is a very, let's just say, flexible player, very versatile player. He can run a number of different roles, so he could replace a number of players on the team. I think there were serious questions about whether getting rid of Jing it may be the correct move, potentially, but you know, as a Singaporean player, of course, he's a massively big deal for the franchise. So I kind of doubt that. Mind Freak feels on paper, it feels like a mistake getting rid of him. But look, who knows what they're going to do, because Paper X have obviously, you know, underwhelmed us, let's just say. So bringing somebody in probably makes sense. Who and for how long, who knows. But something was stepping out of scrims yesterday, presumably for Patmen to trial with them. They're going to try out some different roles, and at some point they're going to come to a conclusion whether we stick with the current team, whether they change the current team, or whether they change it but somewhere further down the line. Now, speaking of Paper X, their logo is right about here on the 2025 VCT teams. Now, there's some interesting rumours about this. The current league is 12 teams per league, and it's a big league, right? I mean, it's a pretty substantial league now, and it's not going to get any smaller. Over the next couple of years, the intention is anyway for more teams to win through Ascension, potentially up to a cap of 14. I think that was discussed a while ago. 12, though, is a reasonable number. And there are questions on exactly what it will look like from a partnered perspective. If you guys aren't aware, the partnership program is up for renewal at the end of 2026. So in 2027, that's when Riot decides who they want to keep on as partners, who they want to get rid of as partners, and potentially which other organizations they want to bring in. This, in some respect, is the importance of like challenges. This is what G2 are doing. Like G2, they are technically a guest team, right? Like they qualified as the Guards and then they bought the team, or didn't buy it but acquired it, right? There was some controversy on that. But G2 are still a guest slot. They are not an official partner of the VCT, of Riot Games. The intention is, though, in that position, you start winning, you start being competitive to such an extent that Riot say, yeah, you'd be a perfect partner for us, and we are going to drop one of our other partners. Of course, there's been talk about a number of teams, but certainly let's just say Cloud9, because they have been making questionable roster decisions. Whatever you want to say, there's been talk about that, whether in a couple of years' time, Riot decide, you know what, C9, you're out, G2, you're in. But they may well drop down the number of partner teams anyway, because the first two of the league, of course, 10 partner teams. In the Americas, those teams are Sen all the way up, excluding 2G and G2. The same you guys can see in the other regions as well. But the intention may be to actually drop down the number of partner teams. Now, this would be very interesting just because, you know, they pay a stipend to these teams to, you know, help keep them afloat on some level. And the idea of saying to a lot of those teams that, yeah, we're actually just going to remove your partnership, you're no longer going to be part of the league unless you make it through Ascension, is going to be a really big deal. But it also puts the pressure on these teams because it's making them say, okay, we need to be out of the 10 partner teams in our region, we need to be in the best 6 or 7, otherwise we might potentially get cut. So that might be what Riot are going for here. It doesn't necessarily seem like they're looking to like small in the leagues, as it were, because there are currently 12 teams. They're considering, you know, maybe 6 to 8 partner teams with 4 to 6 Ascension teams. So, you know, somewhere in the 10 to 14 range in terms of teams per region. There's also talk about having an LCQ and having tier 2 teams potentially attending Masters events, which could, I think, be particularly exciting. So, yeah, intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comments section below. But where I wanted to go next was what it looks like for now, and obviously next year as well, it'll be a similar array of teams, but the group stages going into America's stage 1. Now, this has been confirmed in the other regions as well, apart from Europe. For some reason, we've not seen that confirmed yet. I don't really know why the regions at times are so separated. Look, we know the groups. The groups are as follows: Vitality, Apex, Na'Vi, Giantex, Fnatic, and Heretics. That is a pretty scary group, I would say. It's not like Group Omega is easy, but yeah, definitely a tricky group for some of those teams. And we do have the Chinese region as well. So these are the groups in China. The opening game for Edward will be against Tai Lu on the 15th of March. So this gets underway relatively soon. Today is the 7th. On the 13th of March, that's when XLG versus BLG gets underway. And these are all the first round games, taking us effectively until the middle of April. This is the Pacific. These are the groups, if you guys aren't familiar with them. The first game will be DFM versus Global Esports to kick off the stage. PaperX played DRX as their first game. Then they played Gen.G after that. Then Boom Esports. Then Global Esports. And then DFM, then Global Esports, right? So, you know, for PaperX, the difficulty is maybe slightly front-loaded. Their difficult games on paper come up first, and then it potentially gets easier. T1, the champions of Bangkok, they play Zeta as their first game, and shortly after they play Nongshim, and then their games maybe get slightly harder, especially playing, you know, Talon, let's say, towards the end of the stage, Team Secret and Air, etc., etc. But they certainly on paper have a rather comfortable group. This, though, is the Americas. So these are the first games over there. Of course, they've decided to kick off with some interesting storylines. So it's the 21st of March, the Americas gets underway. The first game is going to be Cloud9 NRG, and that's going to be a bagger, right? Given the recent history, that, in my opinion, is a great way to start out the regular season. So, yeah, who's favourites generally right now? Who even knows? But that's a Group Omega start. And then the other game of the day is Crew versus Loud over in Group A. Then we have, you know, 2GEG. G2 play Furia as their first game, and then on the 24th of March, it's Sentinels. Actually, I guess this would be the 23rd. It's just at midnight my time. Sentinels versus 100T. that's their first game of the season as well. So yeah, as always, right, we get the 700T matchup to kick things off. Then a few days later, Sentinels play Crew. They play EG after that, then Loud, then 2G to close out their stage. So, again, for Sentinels, it's not a bad group maybe on paper so much, but because obviously 2G, they're not looking that great right now. But who knows? You never really know what you're going to get from Crew. They're such a wild cards team. And Evil Geniuses, who knows where they're going to sit as well. Group Omega, though, to me, particularly fascinating, with G2 in there, with NRG in there, with Cloud9 in there. Leviathan made a change. MIBR with Aspas. Furia might struggle, but we'll see. They've obviously got some talent. But yeah, those are the regular season games, concluding on about the 21st of April. And then everything gets ready, of course, to go to Masters Toronto shortly after that. So very much interested in your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Just one final thing. Based on scrims and based on feeling and vibes, I don't know, this is what VCT Scrims believe is the current tier list over in EMEA. Now, this is what he believes. Pretty interesting to think about. Liquid, of course, they did make it to Bangkok. They didn't do that well in Bangkok, but still, I would be tempted to put them higher than 4th. But anyway, for Esports and Heretics, 2nd, 3rd, Vitality, number 1, understandably, Fnatic in 5th, KC potentially in 6th, and after that you've got BBL, KOI, Gentomate, Apex, Giantex, and Na'Vi. So I think there's a big discrepancy really here between the top 5, top 6 teams and the rest in Europe as it stands, and that does make things pretty interesting. You look at the groups, for example. The idea of Na'Vi being dead last as well is, yeah, if that's actually true and they are the worst, how the mighty have fallen on some respect. But yeah, that group is maybe kind of clear-cut then, and also Group Omega, it gets pretty interesting. But intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.